Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, and welcome back to another live session on my Declassified Caribbean channel. And today we're going to be looking at Europe to follow US deportation policy, surveillance, and the mark of the beast. Now, before I start out this presentation, I'll just read for you from Ephesians 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Just wanted to make that clear because we are not really wrestling against human beings, flesh and blood, but against higher powers, some very dark forces that, yes, are influencing human beings and the human powers, right? And those powers, those dark forces, have their dominions. Now, today we're looking at a topic that sits at the intersection of migration, government power, technology, and prophecy. Europe to follow US deportation policies, surveillance, and the mark of the beast. Across the Western world, governments are facing growing debates over borders, illegal immigration, national security, and the use of new technologies to manage populations. The United States has taken a harder line on deportations and immigration enforcement, and many are asking whether similar approaches could influence European policies as well as Caribbean policies. At the same time, we are witnessing the rapid expansion of digital systems from biometric identification to digital IDs and increased surveillance capabilities. Supporters argue that these tools can improve security and efficiency, while critics raise concerns about privacy, freedom, and the possibility of governments gaining unprecedented control over individuals. For many Christians and people, familiar with Bible prophecy, these developments raise deeper questions. Are we witnessing the early stages of a system described in Revelation as the mark of the beast? Or are we simply seeing the natural evolution of technology and governments in modern world? This afternoon, we will connect these issues, examine the facts, explore the concerns, and allow the audience to decide where the line should be drawn between security, freedom, and control. So welcome to another session. I hope that you'll be joining soon. Those of you who are in the chat, good evening. Make sure you share the live, right, so that others can join, so we can have a fascinating conversation with you this afternoon. Now, from the news here, we have new EU systems for return of illegally staying third nationals, and that is coming from the European Parliament. So this is not coming from the US, it's coming from the European Parliament. On Wednesday, MEPs approved changes to EU policy on the return of third nationals staying illegally in the European Union. The new rules seek to simplify and speed up procedures with full respect for fundamental rights and international law, including the principle of non-refoulement and the prohibition of collective expulsions, while preventing abuses and unauthorized movements with the EU. The informal deal reached on June 1 with the Council was approved by plenary with 418 in favor and 218 against and 30 abstentions. Under the legislation, a return decision issued to a non-EU national staying illegally in a member state by the competent national authorities will come up with an obligation to leave the relevant EU country immediately or within a given time. Non-EU nationals subject to a return decision will be required to cooperate with the authorities. In order to prepare their return, they may be detained based on an individual assessment. For example, if they're not cooperating, present a risk of absconding or pose a security threat. Detention will have to be ordered by an administrative or judicial authority and may last up to 24 months. So we're seeing now that many countries around the world are adopting policies that are being implemented in the United States. So I did tell you a long time ago that once the US begins to normalize these things, the rest of the world is going to follow in her footsteps. So right now we're seeing the European Union having no choice And we're sure that Trump is pushing pressure on that union to do exactly what the United States of America is doing. All right. Now we're going to show a few clips here. Before I do that, I want to show you that these plans have been in existence for many years, and I'm going to show you right now how the world is divided up into 10 different regions, just to whet our appetite and to let us understand that we are living in some very dark times, as it were. So let me put that on the screen of the 10 different regions in which our world is actually divided. Make sure you like the live and you're sharing the live so that others can enter and be a part of the conversation. Right, so we have this here up on the screen, and we see that the world is divided into 10 different regions, right? And the division, and I'm going to give you the division. We have North America is one of such divisions, and we have to look carefully at what is happening in North America. Notice that Trump is suggesting that Greenland, that he wants Greenland to be a part of the of North America, of the United States to do. He's saying that because that has been the plan for years, at least since the 1970s, right? It was their plan to divvy up the world into 10 different regions, and the United Nations is on board with such an agenda. Now, these regions are North America, the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and of course Greenland is a part of that image that you're looking at right now. We also have Western Europe, the UK, France, Germany, etc., all of the countries in Western Europe. We have Eastern Europe, the former Soviet Union, Russia, and neighboring states are involved in that. Japan, often separated in older economic models because of its unique role. Australia and New Zealand, Latin America and the Caribbean, so we are a part of that zone, right? And North Africa and the Middle East will be joined together. The Sub-Saharan Africa will be one region by itself, and we have South Asia, which is inclusive of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, etc., etc. We also have East Asia, which contain China, North Korea, South Korea, Taiwan, Mongolia, and others. Just to let you know that the world is long time being divvied up, and they are on board with that agenda. So when we see Trump saying that he wants Greenland to be a part of North America, it's not that he's doing it single-handedly, it's that he's following the agenda that has been designed. Let's look at some clippings that we want to just to, cement our understanding of really what is happening in this world of ours, because some very strange things are about to happen, and many people are going to, in fact, be very surprised at what they're seeing and happening right before their eyes. Weren't we surprised when we saw the pandemic, right? And this thing happened overnight. So we're going to see lots of things happening overnight as well.
The beast, 666. Not a jab. The one world order is the mark of the beast, 666. The mark of the beast will have so much power that will control almost every aspect of the human's life. It will control the human financially. It will control the human religiously. It will control the human educationally. It will control the human technologically. Literally controlling you. Just like John the Beloved in that island of Patmos in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea over 2,000 years, where he said, you will not be able neither to buy, nor to sell, not to get married, unless you have the mark of the beast. Unless you are part of the system, you won't be able to buy and sell. Tomorrow there will be no more paper money. It's a chip. And one day, you wake up, they will delete your account because there is no tangible money. There is nothing. It's just an imaginary number in a computerized system. and they will press the button and make your balance zero. You won't be able to access none of your money. Why? Because the UN says, under this kind of a law, we assumed you are a suspect. You assumed Bishop Murray is a suspect? Yes. Why? Because you speak the speech of division and discrimination. So we'll make your account zero. Listen, I don't have money. And the only thing I have in my pocket is a tissue. You want to seize this? Then I'll have to sneeze in your clothes. You can seize whatever. You can't seize me from my sweetheart. There is no system that can make me distant from my Jesus. So you and your system, in a laity language, get lost. Biblically speaking, be gone, Satan. This is the mark of the beast. They will control you. We won't give you money if you don't adhere to our laws. You won't be able to leave this perimeter unless you are part of the system.
Okay, so that's a very good piece of introduction to start off, to kick off our live session this afternoon. And as he suggests, this is a system. Doesn't have to do just with a one-man character. And notice how the media tends to be looking at Trump and Trump and Trump, but we have to look at a global system. And I just gave you the picture of the UN, of the world map of how they are dividing the world into 10 different regions. Now, what is going to happen is that they're going to control us politically, as he suggested, educationally, but religiously, economically. And we can see that the world is finally coming together. We saw during the pandemic, nobody would have thought that during the pandemic, everybody would have come together around a common cause. And that is what they have to do. They have to use something that is going to happen in the world, right? Like climate change. And that we spoke about some days ago, that climate change is going to be the glue that connects everybody together, because everybody is frightened and scared about a climate that is going to have increased earthquakes and storms and hurricanes, and people are going to be afraid. So when people are afraid, what do? They submit to the system. And that's exactly what we are seeing now being designed. Now let's go to video number 2, a clipping, and we are going to discuss these things, because we have to now up the conversation, because things are moving rapidly as I speak. So I go to clipping number 2, and I'm going to put that up on the screen.
States to proclaim a national Sabbath, not for them, for Jewish Americans on Saturday. So ask yourself this: what do you think they're trying to do? They're going to ask for their day next. They're going to say, Mr. President, if Jewish Americans get a national Shabbat, where is the national Lord's Day for the rest of us? And that pressure will not come from fringe voices. It'll come from major Christian organizations, from talk radio, from political donors, from people the administration depends on. And here's the part nobody's talking about. The pressure has to be an open channel. The White House website right now has a priority page titled Protect Religious Liberty. And by the way, there are religious leaders even in our church that are political that have gone around saying, hey, there is no separation of church and state in the Constitution. And technically they're right, but there is amendments that hold that same weight.
Those people who like to criticize America and criticize people in America and always talking about separation of church and state, which is not in the Constitution, by the way. Do they realize that our founding document, Declaration of Independence, talks about certain unalienable rights given to us by our Creator, aka God?
You know, the Constitution says nothing about separation of church and state, by the way. That's been distorted tremendously.
We need to push back. Every time we hear separation of church and state, we need to say there is no separation of church and state. That's a lie. And every time, I think we have some interviews after this, I'm going to make it very clear, because we know that's what the Constitution says. There is no separation of church and state.
Okay, so we're seeing these men using a lot of cunning and craft, right? Telling us that there is no separation of church and state. Now, what do you think they mean by that? They mean that what is going to happen is that religion is going to be used to inform policy. Because what many of these guys behind the scenes are suggesting is that the present world in which we live has been too secularized, and being secular, people have lost values. So we're seeing right now the proliferation and the expansion of immoral tendencies and behaviors around the world. And we can't beat them for that in terms of that, because yes, we're seeing a lot of killings, a lot of shootings. The other day we woke up to the fact that these young men went on a trip July 4th, that was Nolan Wells, and he is gone missing. Right? And he supposedly went with his friends. So we are seeing the expansion, and we're seeing a level of immorality in our world now that people don't even bat a second wink to kill before they kill or they steal. However, that is a dangerous road on which they are walking, because we have seen this before. And that's why if you read about the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648, then was the time that you had the separation of church and state, that the states that were being founded at the time would have been secular states. Because before the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648, many of our nations, the entire world was based on religion. It was a theocracy, right? A theocracy. That's the word. That's the pronunciation of the word. It was a theocracy that many nations actually practiced. So what we're seeing now, the world is moving into a direction that they're now telling us that politics alone will not be able to guide the world, to unite the world. So in order to unite the world, they will have to have religion inform the policies of the world. And that is why you see Trump now moving into that direction. But not only him, other nations are moving in that direction. And we know a lot of the world are already theocracies, including Iran. Iran is a theocracy, right? But we don't want theocracy in the West. What we want are what? Secular democracies. That is what they were meant to be. But what they're saying is that because they want a one world order, people are going to be dissidents. When you have secular democracy, people are going to, be dissidents, and they don't want that to happen. They want all of us to be under one banner in which we are going to behave the same way. But in order to do that, they have to set up the surveillance state so that they can control every movement, every thought, every action done. And this whole matter of the third country nationals, that's the direction that they're moving in. So they're setting up the foundation. They're laying the groundwork for the mark of the beast to be instituted and to be implemented. Let's continue to watch some other clippings, because we want to inform ourselves what is happening and deep commentaries that people are actually making out there. So let me get to the next clipping, and then we will discuss. And make sure you are sending your comments, because that is how we're going to be able to learn from each other. Share the live,
and it is moving faster than most people realize. Countries that once welcomed millions of migrants are now reversing course at full speed. In the year 2025, deportations are rising sharply, borders are tightening, and immigration policies are becoming tougher than at any point in recent history. This shift is not quiet, and it is not accidental. Is it driven by concerns over public safety, economic pressure, or political survival? And which European countries are pushing the hardest to send immigrants back? Today, we count down 10 European nations carrying out removals in record numbers, and some of these decisions may surprise you. Stay with us as we examine the numbers, the reasons, and the real consequences of Europe's immigration shakeup. If this topic matters to you, subscribe now, share this video, and leave your opinion in the comments. Number 10. Latvia. Latvia might be small, with just 1.8 million people, roughly the population of Phoenix, Arizona, but when it comes to immigration, this Baltic nation is punching way above its weight in the year 2025. If you look at a map, Latvia shares a 214-kilometer border with Belarus and a 292-kilometer border with Russia, two countries that have been accused of weaponizing migration, basically pushing migrants toward European Union borders to create chaos. To fight back, Latvia has ramped up deportations by a whopping 45% compared to the year 2024. Last year, about 2,100 undocumented immigrants were deported, but in the year 2025, that number is expected to exceed 3,000. The government has also poured more than 200 million euros, about 215 million United States dollars, into border security, installing advanced thermal imaging cameras, motion sensors, and drones to prevent illegal crossings. And here's the part that gets controversial. Latvia is one of the first European countries to legalize pushbacks at the border. That means if migrants arrive illegally, they are immediately turned around and sent back to Belarus or Russia with no questions asked. Critics say this violates international asylum laws, but Latvia argues it is necessary to protect national security. Another major shift is Latvia tightening its residency laws. Previously, immigrants could apply for permanent residency after 5 years, but now the requirement is 10 years, and applicants must pass a Latvian language exam. This has created a mass exodus of Russian-speaking residents, with over 20,000 people leaving Latvia since the year 2024 because they cannot meet the new requirements. So is Latvia becoming a fortress? Number 9. Greece. Greece, the land of ancient history and stunning islands, has also faced one of Europe's biggest migration crises. Since the year 2015, Greece has been a main entry point for migrants, especially those arriving from Syria, Afghanistan, and parts of Africa through Turkey. By the year 2020, the country had received over 1.2 million migrants, more than 10% of its population. But in the year 2025, the Greek government is saying enough. New policies are cutting asylum approvals by 60%, and rejected applicants are being deported faster than ever. In the year 2024, about 15,000 migrants were deported, and in the year 2025, that number is expected to jump to 25,000. One of the most controversial measures is detention. Asylum applicants can now be held for up to 36 months while their case is reviewed, triple the previous limit, and the government says this is meant to discourage arrivals in the first place. Greece has also ramped up border patrols in the Aegean Sea, using Coast Guard boats, thermal drones, and artificial intelligence-powered surveillance to detect unauthorized crossings. Greece has also struck a major deal with Turkey, promising to return at least 10,000 migrants per year under a new border agreement worth 1.5 billion euros, about 1.6 billion United States dollars. But there is a catch. Turkey is demanding that the European Union increase financial aid in return for taking back the migrants. And Greece is moving faster on removals. Deportation flights are being fast-tracked, and the government has signed agreements with 15 African countries to return migrants directly to their home nations, cutting out lengthy European Union procedures. Human rights groups are furious, but many Greek citizens support the changes. In a 2025 poll, 72% of Greeks said they wanted stricter immigration laws, especially after high-profile crimes involving undocumented migrants. Number 8. Austria. Austria might not be the first country you think of when it comes to migration crackdowns, but this land of alpine peaks and classical music is now one of Europe's strictest enforcers. The reason is geography. Austria sits right in the middle of Europe's migrant corridor. It borders 8 countries, which makes it a key transit route for migrants heading north. Since the year 2015, Austria has received over 500,000 asylum applications, a huge number for a country with only 9 million people, and by the year 2024, public frustration had reached a breaking point. So what is Austria doing in the year 2025? First, it has cut asylum approvals by 70%, meaning the chances of getting approved are lower than ever. Second, Austria is prioritizing deportations, aiming to remove 40,000 undocumented immigrants in this year alone. And here is the part drawing the most attention. Austria is backing a European Union plan to build deportation hubs outside of Europe. The idea is that instead of housing migrants in Austria, they would be sent to processing centers in North Africa, while their asylum cases are reviewed. The plan is still being developed, but if it moves forward, Austria intends to be at the forefront. The Austrian government is also blocking citizenship applications for migrants who have received any form of government assistance within the past 5 years. That means even someone who has legally worked in Austria could still be denied a passport if they have ever received welfare support or unemployment benefits. On top of that, Austria's newest border plan includes high-tech surveillance towers along the Slovakian and Hungarian borders. These 5-meter-tall towers come with artificial intelligence-powered facial recognition designed to scan people entering the country. Number 7. Denmark. Denmark is known for Vikings and for ranking among the happiest countries on earth, but here is what many people do not expect. Denmark is also one of the strictest countries on immigration in Europe. For years, Denmark has been quietly pushing a hardline approach that is now making headlines worldwide. In the year 2025, the Danish government is not only deporting illegal immigrants, it is also outsourcing the entire asylum process to Africa. Yes, that is the plan. Denmark has signed a deal with Rwanda worth about 250 million euros, roughly 270 million United States dollars, to relocate asylum seekers there while their applications are processed. The government argues this will deter illegal migration by making Denmark a less attractive destination. And Denmark is not stopping there. Denmark has introduced what it calls a zero asylum policy, meaning it will accept almost no new refugees except under exceptional circumstances. In the year 2024, Denmark approved only 800 asylum applications, described as the lowest number in the European Union. Compare that to Sweden, which approved 20,000, and the scale of Denmark's shift becomes clear. In the year 2025, Denmark is doubling down on deportations with a target of 10,000 removals by the end of the year. Authorities are even revoking residency permits from Syrians and Afghans who have lived in Denmark for years, arguing that conditions in their home countries are now safe enough for return. This move has sparked major protests, but the government has not backed down. Another controversial rule targets settlement and daily life. Immigrants from non-Western backgrounds must now live in designated integration zones, specific neighborhoods where they must attend Danish culture and language classes before being allowed to move freely. Failure to comply can lead to deportation. Denmark's stance has made it one of the most extreme cases in Europe, and yet a whopping 76% of Danish voters support these policies. Number 6. Italy. Italy has been dealing with a migration crisis for decades, and in the year 2025 it has rolled out one of the wildest solutions yet, sending migrants to Albania. Yes, that is the plan. Italy and Albania have signed an agreement worth 1.5 billion euros, about 1.6 billion United States dollars, that allows Italy to send 36,000 migrants per year to Albanian processing centers while their asylum claims are reviewed. The goal is to take pressure off Italy's overloaded immigration system, where over 180,000 migrants arrived by sea in the year 2024 alone, a 60% increase from the year 2023. The Italian government, led by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, has also introduced rapid deportation laws aimed at removing at least 40,000 undocumented migrants in the year 2025. That is a huge change from earlier governments that struggled to deport even 20,000 people per year. And there is more. Italy is now seizing migrant boats at record rates. The Italian Coast Guard has confiscated over 1,200 boats used by smugglers in the first half of the year 2025 alone. The message is simple. If you arrive illegally, you are not staying. Another big shift is Italy's crackdown on humanitarian non-governmental organizations. These groups, which rescue migrants at sea, are now facing heavy fines and even jail time for bringing migrants to Italian shores. The government argues this is necessary to break smuggling networks, while human rights activists say it is putting lives at risk. Despite all of this, Italy is still struggling to control migration, especially from Tunisia and Libya, where smugglers keep finding new ways to send migrants across the Mediterranean. Can Italy's new strategy really stop illegal migration? Only time will tell. Number 5. Poland. Poland is taking no chances in the year 2025 when it comes to immigration. This country, known for pierogies and medieval castles, has become one of the toughest anti-immigration nations in Europe. So what changed? Poland has sealed its 400-kilometer border with Belarus by building a high-tech border wall costing 350 million euros, about 380 million United States dollars. It is equipped with motion detectors, drones, and artificial intelligence surveillance, built to stop what officials call a hybrid war after Belarus was accused of pushing thousands of migrants into Poland to create political instability. Poland says it is working. In the year 2024, over 50,000 migrants tried to cross illegally. In the year 2025, that number has dropped by 80%, credited to the wall and strict deportation laws. Poland has also passed an emergency law allowing border guards to deport anyone caught crossing illegally immediately, with no asylum claim, no appeal, and no delay. If you are caught, you are sent back the same day. Poland has started mass deportation flights, removing at least 5,000 migrants per month to their home countries. The government is spending 500 million euros, roughly 540 million United States dollars, in this year alone on charter flights to Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. Public support is strong. In a year 2025 poll, 82% said they wanted even stricter controls. Critics say Poland is going too far, pointing to refugees from Syria and Sudan being denied entry. The European Union has warned Poland it may be violating international asylum laws, but Poland's message is blunt. Our country, our rules. In the year 2025, if you are an illegal immigrant, you are not staying. Number 4. Finland. Finland, the land of saunas, northern lights, and some of the happiest people on earth, has taken a hard turn on immigration. You might think of Finland as calm and welcoming, but in the year 2025 it has become one of Europe's strictest countries for migrants. The Finnish government set a new record by deporting over 10,000 migrants in a single year, which is double the number of deportations compared to the year 2023, and officials say the country is only getting tougher. Finland has introduced express deportations. If you enter Finland illegally, you can be sent back within 48 hours, with no asylum application and no long legal process. The biggest change is at the eastern border. Finland has now shut its border with Russia completely, after accusing Russia of sending thousands of migrants across in an attempt to destabilize the country. To stop this, Finland built a 200-kilometer border fence, costing 400 million euros, about 435 million United States dollars, equipped with drones, infrared cameras, and motion sensors. Finland is not only blocking new arrivals, it is also removing people who are already inside. The government has revoked over 5,000 residence permits from asylum seekers, arguing that home countries such as Afghanistan, Iraq, and Somalia are now safe enough for return. The decision triggered major protests, but the Finnish government has not backed down. There is another twist. Finland is targeting criminal migrants more aggressively than ever. If you are convicted of a crime, even a minor one, your chances of deportation increase by 300%. In the year 2024 alone, Finland deported over 1,500 foreign criminals, including gang members and drug traffickers. Surprisingly, many Finns support these moves. In a year 2025 survey, 68% of Finnish citizens said they wanted even stricter immigration laws, arguing Finland's welfare system should be for Finns first. Finland in the year 2025 is not the same Finland from a decade ago. Number 3. Sweden. Sweden used to be one of the most welcoming countries for immigrants, but in the year 2025 that has completely changed. Sweden has reversed its immigration policies and is now deporting migrants at record levels. To understand why, it helps to rewind. After taking in over 1.2 million refugees between the year 2015 and the year 2023, Sweden began struggling with rising crime, gang violence, and growing social tension. In response, the new government launched Operation Clean Sweden, a major campaign aimed at deporting at least 50,000 undocumented migrants by the end of the year 2025. So how are they doing it? First, Sweden has cut social benefits for undocumented migrants. No more free housing, free healthcare, or welfare if you do not have legal status. This has pushed thousands to leave voluntarily because they can no longer afford to stay. Second, Sweden is fast-tracking deportations like never before. Immigration courts now process asylum cases in about half the time, and rejected applicants must leave within 30 days or risk being forcibly removed. Under this new system, over 25,000 migrants have already been expelled. But the biggest shock is that Sweden is now deporting entire families, even when some members were born in Sweden. The government argues that if the parents are undocumented, the children must leave too. This has triggered major protests, but officials insist it is necessary to restore law and order. Crime has been the central driver behind this crackdown. In the year 2024 alone, Sweden recorded about 1,300 shootings, many linked to gang violence in immigrant-dominated areas. The Prime Minister has declared Sweden will no longer tolerate criminal migrants, and anyone convicted of any crime, no matter how minor, will be deported immediately. Another controversial step is that deportation officers are being sent into schools to identify undocumented children, sparking outrage abroad. Despite the backlash, Swedish voters appear to support the shift. A year 2025 poll found that 72% of Swedes back these tougher measures, saying they want Sweden to feel safe again. From one of Europe's most open countries to one of its strictest, Sweden's transformation has been nothing short of shocking. Number 2. Germany. If you told someone in the year 2015 that Germany, Europe's economic powerhouse and one of the most immigrant-friendly countries, would be mass deporting migrants by the year 2025, they would have laughed. But that is exactly what is happening now. Germany, once known for its welcome culture, is taking a much harsher stance on immigration, and the numbers are staggering. In the year 2025 alone, Germany has deported over 60,000 migrants, the highest total since World War II. That is about a 50% increase compared to the year 2023. So what changed? Germany's migration crisis has hit a breaking point. After accepting more than 2 million refugees since the year 2015, the country is facing housing shortages, rising crime, and mounting economic pressure. The cost of supporting asylum seekers has ballooned to around 50 billion euros, roughly 54 billion United States dollars per year, and taxpayers are fed up. A survey in the year 2025 found that 74% of Germans believe the country has too many migrants and support stricter deportation laws. One of Germany's most controversial tools is a fast-track deportation law that allows authorities to remove rejected asylum seekers in as little as 14 days, instead of the usual month-long process. That change has made it easier to send back tens of thousands of people, especially those from Afghanistan, Syria, and North Africa. But it does not stop there. Germany has also cut benefits for asylum seekers, reducing housing support and financial assistance to encourage voluntary return. In the year 2025 alone, this policy has already pushed over 20,000 migrants to leave on their own. And crime has become a major driver of the crackdown. In recent years, German cities have seen sharp increases in gang violence, theft, and drug trafficking, with many incidents linked to migrant communities. The government has prioritized deporting foreign criminals, expelling over 10,000 people with criminal records in just the first 6 months of the year 2025. Perhaps the most shocking move is Germany's deportation raids. Every week, police sweep through refugee shelters, train stations, and even schools to locate and remove undocumented migrants. Videos of these raids have gone viral and sparked massive protests, but the government insists the operations are necessary. With these extreme measures, Germany has reshaped its immigration policy, and officials say it is only getting stricter. Number 1. France. France has taken the most aggressive approach to deporting immigrants in the year 2025, and the numbers are mind-blowing. France has expelled over 100,000 people in just 1 year, nearly double the level seen in the year 2023. The pressure behind this did not appear overnight. France has been dealing with a long-building immigration crisis, with over 7 million immigrants living in the country, about 10% of the population. As crime, riots, and social tensions rose, the government argued it was time for a complete reset, and that reset meant mass deportations. One of the most controversial measures is the zero-tolerance deportation program. Under this policy, any undocumented migrant, any failed asylum seeker, or any foreign criminal is removed immediately. There are no second chances. If you are caught without legal papers, you can be put on a plane within the same week, and it is not limited to undocumented migrants. France has also started deporting people with legal residency if they are considered a threat to public order. That change has forced thousands of people, including longtime residents, to leave. What shocked the world even more was France's expulsion of entire migrant communities in the year 2025. Police dismantled over 50 migrant camps in cities such as Paris, Marseille, and Calais. Families were put on buses and sent back to their home countries. Some of these communities had been in France for years, but the government's message was blunt: France must be for the French first. Then came the crime crackdown. After a record-breaking year of violent protests in the year 2024, emergency laws expanded the ability to arrest and deport suspected criminals. In just the first 6 months of the year 2025, France deported over 15,000 foreign criminals, including gang members, drug dealers, and people suspected of radical extremism. A major turning point followed a series of terrorist attacks in the year 2024. The French president vowed France would not tolerate those who do not share its values, and that vow was followed by deportations of thousands of radicalized individuals, including people born in France who held dual citizenship. France also tightened border policies by shutting down asylum applications from certain countries, including Algeria, Morocco, and Afghanistan. If you arrive from one of these places, you may not even be considered for asylum and can be sent back immediately. Despite controversy, public support is strong. A year 2025 poll found 78% of French citizens believed past immigration policy was too soft and needed to be tougher. Subscribe now, share this video, and tell me in the comments whether you think France is restoring control or going too far.
Okay, so we are seeing these things happening around the world, and sometimes we think it's just Trump, Trump, Trump. Now, if we go back to 2000, was it 16 thereabout, when there was Brexit, and we understand that the Windrush generation, those people who went from the Caribbean to Great Britain, that they were being denationalized, and they were, because before they went to Great Britain, they were actually subjects, because at that time, most of the Caribbean countries, all of them in the Anglo-speaking world, that is, they were colonies of Great Britain. So they were subjects of Great Britain. They went there, and suddenly, in 2016, we heard that Britain wanted to denationalize them and send them back to the Caribbean, even though they went there as subjects of Great Britain. So we're seeing now where the world is shifting and moving into a direction. And notice that they are all saying on the video, all of these countries are complaining that it's because of the high crime rate, right? And you have many people who are going there and they're practicing terrorism and they're doing all of these bad things. Now, is that true? Are the immigrants and those who are seeking asylum, are they practicing criminality? Or is it that the state wants to control the entire nation, so it has to give that pretext that immigrants are not legal citizens, they are not law-abiding, they're criminals, they're terrorists, and these are the sort of underlying, excuses and justifications we're hearing from the authorities. Now, if they do that, what are they going to eventually do to citizens? And notice that they're saying that even if you are legally there, you can also be deported if the government considers you to be a threat to national security, which might be that you don't agree with a government policy. So these are very important things for us to watch. We have farmers are feeling the pinch as their crops are spoiling, as workers are deported or not showing up to work. Yes, we have many people who are not showing up to work because they are scared that they are going to be deported. And as I'm suggesting to you, that it is always framed as if this is only a US sort of policy, but we're seeing where the entire world, right, is using immigration. And so we had the pandemic, and they all came around one idea, the medicine, right? And everybody agreed on the medicine. Now we have immigration laws, and the entire world, not only the US, we're hearing now from the European Union, and we're seeing what is happening in the Caribbean, that they're accepting third country nationals. So we are seeing the entire world coming together around these draconic policies toward immigrants, right? And that is what we have to watch very carefully. Now, let's look at another clipping, because we are looking at the similarities and what similar policies that the world is implementing that is going to have deleterious effects on us living here in the region. So let's go to another clipping. And we're seeing where we're controlled, we're being controlled, and they're using the immigration policy to control everything that we do.
And it is moving faster than most people realize.
I think that's, sorry, this is
countries that once welcomed millions of migrants are now.
Let me go back to another clipping that I had here saved on my screen. So let's go here and get it up on the platform.
But the second you land in the US, an officer can take your phone and scroll through everything on it. No warrant, no reason, and nobody told you they started doing this. Here is what changed. CBP Directive 3340-049B quietly took effect in January 2026. It covers your phone, laptop, tablet, smartwatch, even your USB drives. It applies to everyone: citizens, green card holders, visa holders. At every airport, land border, and seaport. 2 levels of search, and the first one should scare you. A basic search is an officer scrolling through your photos, texts, emails, call log by hand, and it requires 0 suspicion. They do not need to think you did anything wrong. They can look just because they feel like it. An advanced search copies your entire device with forensic tools. Normally that needs reasonable suspicion, but under the new directive, a national security concern is enough, and they decide what that means. Last year, they searched over 55,000 devices, up 18%. People with valid work visas got detained and turned around because of what was on their phone. Now here is the one thing that protects you. CBP can only search what is physically on your device. They cannot touch your cloud, iCloud, Google Drive, unless it is already downloaded. So before you travel, log out of your cloud accounts and turn on airplane mode before you land. That alone locks them out of most of your life. And know your risk. Citizens cannot be denied entry for refusing to unlock, but they can seize your device for days. Visa holders who refuse can be denied entry or lose their visa entirely. Before your next trip, travel with a clean phone. Log out of the cloud, airplane mode on. And if they seize your device, get the officer's name and badge number. Your phone holds your entire life. At the border, they treat it like a suitcase. Pack it that way.
All right, so that is people who are entering the United States now, and you are going in as even a citizen. You know, as soon as you land in the United States, you are subject to search, even your phones, right? So make sure that you take off things that you perhaps don't want them to see, controversial stuff. Maybe it's an opinion that you share, but it might be controversial. And therefore, even though you're going in legally, you might be on, you know, a legal visa, but it doesn't mean that the United States has to accept you. For those citizens, they're suggesting they can't stop you from entering, going back into your country. But what can happen is that they can seize your phone, right? And that they can perhaps detain you if they sense that there's something on your phone that might also be controversial or something that they might regard as a national threat. So we're moving into a direction in which our governments are becoming draconic, right? And they're using criminality. They're using the issue of immigration to gain more control over the populace. And that is what we're having. So they're militarizing the entire immigration process, the entire, what we call it now, you know, the right of being a citizen, and to be able to express your ideas according to the dictates of your conscience. And these are things that we must be able to watch very vigilantly, which many of us are not doing, right? Until just like the pandemic, these things come up on us unawares, and then we begin to cry, we make very foolish decisions, and that is how the system controls us. So let us look at another clipping, and then we can have a discussion. If not, then we can move on to your whatever you're doing on this day. Let us now move to another. I think this is what I had here to watch. Let me see that it is okay. Yeah, so put that on the stage.
Across Europe, and it is moving faster than most people realize. Countries that once welcomed millions of migrants are now
already. Let me go back to the next one that I wanted to show you guys. Is it this? Let me see if it's this.
Digital ID. Okay, and this digital ID will also lead to digital currency. And they can actually put a microchip or a QR bar in your forehead, and this will be considered the mark of the beast, okay? And it's all part of the Christian Zionist eschatology. Another really important thing about the Freemasons is the idea of a one world government. Because remember, the Antichrist is the leader of a one world government. And it'll be based in Jerusalem, okay? And so the headquarters will be Solomon's temple, or the third temple. And then you have the Islamic eschatology, okay? In the Islamic eschatology is a response to all these other eschatologies, where they say that when the system is created, it'll be called Dajjal, the Antichrist, okay? And when this happens, then Jesus will return to defeat the Antichrist. Okay, that's the mainstream Islamic eschatology. Then you have the Shia. Okay, the Shia are the Iranians, where they believe that it will be the 12th Imam Mahdi who will lead the followers, okay, the Ummah. Okay, Ummah just means community of believers, into victory against the Antichrist, the Dajjal, okay? So you can see how these eschatologies are basically lining up together, right? The Shia are the Iranians. the Islamic is the entire Arab world. Right? Another eschatology that's very important is the Catholic eschatology. The Catholic eschatology we can call City of God, the church, which is Jerusalem. St. Augustine talks about this, about how the Catholic Church, it is the millennium, it is the Messianic age, because we represent God and we bring peace and prosperity to the world. Now, what's important about the church is that it became the dominant power in the world because Rome fell. Okay? So Roman Empire collapses. But this is all part of God's divine plan, because Roman Empire, Rome, was the city of earth, okay, of power, of money, of wealth. And what matters is Jerusalem, the city of God, of spirituality, of divinity, okay? Now, the city of God came to an end because of the rise of the Protestants and the Anglo-American Empire. So for the Catholic Church to achieve its eschatology and establish again the city of God, what they need to do is also see the Anglo-American Empire destroyed, just like the Roman Empire. Okay? So that is the Catholic eschatology. The last eschatology I want to discuss is the Orthodox eschatology. And what's the Orthodox eschatology? The Russians. Okay? And this is called the Third Rome prophecy. The Third Rome prophecy is basically that Moscow will become the third Rome. Okay, the first Rome was Rome, second Rome was Constantinople, and the third Rome will be Moscow. And also, what's really important to appreciate is that there will be no fourth Rome. So when Moscow becomes the third Rome, history ends. Okay, and peace and prosperity will come to the world. Okay, so what does this mean? It means that Russia will unite the Orthodox world. Okay, so right now the Orthodox world is split into Eastern Orthodoxy and Greek Orthodoxy. Okay, and something that is very important that this prophecy says is that the Russians will defeat Turkey in a war, and then have the Greeks return to Constantinople, which is modern day Istanbul. Okay, that's what the prophecy says. And so you look at all these different eschatologies, okay? And again, guys, this is the majority of the world, right? If you actually look at the convergence points, you come to some startling conclusions, okay? So let's look at the convergence.
Okay, so we're seeing here where each empire, right, each world power, including Russia, by the way, they have their own interpretation of eschatology. And when we talk about eschatology, we mean end time events. There are people in this world, and you might not think that they are religious, but they, in religious interpretations, form their political and economic policies. So we have, in which he's suggesting, you have the Catholic eschatology, right, in which they think that the Catholic Pope is going to rule from Jerusalem. Hence why you see the war is happening in the Middle East. You have the Protestant eschatology, and those who believe that there's going to be a tribulation, and hence Christ is coming to liberate the church, which is not true, but that is what the many Protestant churches believe. He spoke about even the Muslim eschatology, right, in which they think that a similar thing will happen in Jerusalem, right, and perhaps their God will liberate them from the sort of oppression that is taking place in this world, right? So each reigning power, global power, has their sort of interpretation of what is going to happen in the end times. And that is why they are laying these draconic plans, thinking that they're doing our best, that they're actually working in our interest to protect us. And that's why they're telling us about national security, and they want peace, and they want, all of the words, the buzzword security. Many people are going to fall for that thing and say that, wow, the government wants to protect us, so we have to ensure that we submit to their policies. Now, and on you're saying, let them take their visas. I'm not interested to run up and down Times Square to watch the vagrants or spend my little disposable income. Now, the fact of the matter is that these policies are going to happen in every country. So whether you're in your own country, the country of your birth, you can be deported depending on what is in their memorandum of understanding. What we don't know is a lot of the clauses that were put in the memorandum of understanding that these countries have signed on to. But what we're seeing is that citizens of their countries can also be impacted by government policies. Because if you do something or you say something that might be controversial or that government doesn't agree with, or you might not agree with your government, then you can be also deported from your country of birth. Okay, so these are the laws, and that's what we're saying, that no man can buy nor sell, right? That is what everything is, the groundwork is being laid, that if you do not comply with the system, it means therefore that they can treat you and exile you to a third country or to a country that you don't know, right? And that they will allow you to go because they don't want to have any sort of disruption in the society. So this is where we're moving to in terms of deportation laws and policies, the surveillance state, which will ultimately lead to what is known as the mark of the beast, right? So I think that this is it. I don't think you are coming to the live today. Is there any questions, comments? I'm not going to stay long with you since you might not be interested in the topic. We will, any other question, comments? All right, so share the live, like the live before you go, and share it, and make sure that you come towards tomorrow live. We're going to talk about the contributions of Afro-Caribbean versus Africans in the UK, right? So remember, if you don't share the live and you don't like the live, you're killing the channel, because the algorithm, so you decide whether you want the channel to die, because the algorithm wants it to die. So you want to make sure that you push it by attending the lives and sharing the lives, liking the lives, that the algorithm does not kill the channel. That is exactly what it's doing, and you probably will help it to do so. Trevor is saying, great topic, Andrew, and the analysis is correct. Yes. And we hope that we'll be able to have more lives on this. It should have been better attended, so we can extend it and make sure that this goes across the entire region. But the thing about it is to waste my time 2-3 hours, and then the algorithm kills a live. So it's better for me to just do, 50 minutes live, and, whether it's lost or not, then I would not have expended so much energy. So make sure that you save the live, you share the live, rather not save it, but share the live, and also like the live, so that the algorithm will not kill the video. Obviously, the algorithm is sending the videos out to the wrong audience, and people are not staying on. But we can't force the algorithm to, we only can force it by sharing it. It can't stop if you share the live and you like the live, so that it can move on. That is what we need it to do, because if not, then the algorithm is working night and day to kill the channel. All right, so any other comment? Any other comment that we have? Any other comment? Questions? But we can see that we're moving into a direction of fascistic governments, right? Fascistic governments in which our rights as citizens are going to, be whittled away, and we will not be able to stand up and to critique what the government is doing, or we can be deported to third countries. And this is where they're going. They start out with immigrants first, and many people are thinking that, oh, this does not, I'm in my country, I'm safe, and everything is okay, or I'm in the United States legally, so this does not apply to me. But at the end of the day, it might just apply to you. Yeah, I got on late, but I heard the last part, and immigration is being weaponized for the new world. What the guy said in the last video summed it up. Some people are probably watching football today, right? And that is what is happening, that we are so distracted by what is happening in the sports realm that very soon what is going to happen is that while they're entertaining us, then they are taking away our rights. And just like the pandemic, we wake up to see that things are over. Now, I'm only saying immigration built most of these countries, and they may be shooting themselves in the foot in the long run. Now, they will take those who they want. One of the things that it's not the end of immigration. I think what they're doing, they want select immigration, the people that they want who are pliable, who will not rock the boat, right, and who will go along. They're trying to coerce us and to make us become very afraid that we will just toe the line with government. So you will have immigration. This is not the end of immigration, but it's a sort of controlled immigration in terms of who they want in their country, and also for you not to challenge or rock the boat. But remember that Trump said he wants immigrants, but not certain types, if you will. Now, we have Trevor saying people will indeed be deported to third countries, but they won't listen until it's happening to ones who they believe deserve it. For example, right, the Haitians, and then it happens to others. Right. And it might just happen to us too, because if we continue to rock the boat and talk against what government is doing, then the government can also say that we're criminals and send us to third countries. Remember now what they're saying, that they just arrest you. So you're going through the airport or you're driving on the highway, and they just can arrest you and take you in. And in many times you have no legal representative or representation. And so you'll have to just comply with their diktats. And I'm just saying, imagine if the American Indians had the power to run the rest of Americans out. Right, but what is happening is that it is he who has the power, right? And right now it's in the hands of the people of European descent. So yeah, they don't have that right now because that power is now in the hands of these people. Trevor is saying, similar to COVID, in some countries they took you from your home and placed you in quarantine. Absolutely. And as I told you, Noam Chomsky was saying during the pandemic that if people do not want to take the V, that they should be exiled to some far out place, right? Some place in the desert, right? That's what he was suggesting, that the government should not argue with people who didn't want the V. They should be exiled. So now they're laying the groundwork, because COVID was a run test, a dry test, right? And they know now what to do. And the laws are now being implemented, and the memoranda of understanding are being written, and they are having these countries sign on to them. So it means, therefore, that when something comes up like a big event, then Mia Motley or Andrew Holness or Irfan Ali or whomever is in power, they can say this is the law and this is what is going to happen to people. And many people are going to be surprised. Many people are going to be surprised because they're going to wonder really what happened, that this is not legal, but then you won't be able to stand up for your rights, right? This is what is going to happen eventually. Pedro is saying, greetings, Chomsky, the liberal, yes, he was the one who said that we should be exiled. In some far-flung place, he said that those who do not want to comply, right? And this is a person who suggests, as you're saying, is liberal. He believes in freedom of expression. He spoke against the empire. But many people are suggesting that Noam Chomsky is a part of the whole infrastructure, even though he pretended to have written against it, right? But he was a part of it. Then we have Anon is saying in TNT, or PM just said she still is of the opinion that those fishermen were not murdered. Wow. Do you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? He's saying here, Anon is saying that she believes, in other words, that is her justification of saying denial. It's that she is in denial that it happened. So they can kill us and tell us that it never happened. They can deny that it even ever took place. That is something we need to watch, right? Because if she's in denial, then what should we say, or what can we say when we have no evidence? This is amazing and concerning. Now, Andrew, I heard right, not no get the hair. Right. So that is what they are doing to the entire system, is about, coercing us to actually do what they want us to do. There are two things I have here. So let me just give it to you before I go. I forgot I had two other clippings, and you can listen to them and we can discuss them. Yeah, I didn't share these two clippings with you. So before I go, let me share them with you right now. Put it on the screen and share with you, since people are coming in slowly now. Let me put it on the screen. Okay, so we're going to turn up the volume here.
With Lamb and Lion Ministries. We're living in a day where Bible prophecy sees the re-election of President Trump has caused a lot of emotion, both positive and negative. His regaining the office of presidency has literally created reaction. Other nations are preparing to deal with the iron fist of Donald Trump. Again, that can be a positive, or recently said something which has not yet caused much reaction, but it may if he pursues what he says he wants to do. He said he wants the United States to buy and control Greenland. Now one might say, what in Greenland is in the territory of the Kingdom of Denmark, making its citizens of Denmark. Greenland became unified with Denmark on January 14th in 1814. Now, even though Greenland is not part of the European Union, officially, it's classified as an overseas. It does make them citizens and English. Now, demographically, Greenland, well, as of 2024, has an estimated population of just over 56,000 people. That's all. It's located just off the east coast, surrounded by the Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. Now, for such a small country, it does hold a rather upsetting distinction. According to stats compiled by William Robert Johnston, who is the co-author of the Abortion Worldwide Report, records show that in 2023, Greenland had the highest abortion rate in the world. This report reveals that for every 1,000 women between ages of 15 and 39, Greenland has 100.7 abortions taking place. This means in 2023, Greenland had more abortions than live births. This country recorded 716 live births, but performed 1,034 abortions. Every year since 2012, the number of abortions in Greenland has consistently exceeded the number of live births. According to the Center for Reproduction Rights, Greenland allows abortion for any reason. Now, back to last December and Donald Trump. He said, for purposes of national security and freedom throughout the world, the United States of America feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity. An absolute necessity. And those who call Greenland their home were asked if they were worried about the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's latest claim that America's ownership and control of their homeland was a necessity. Their response was mixed, but surprisingly, the majority of its citizens were okay with Greenland becoming part of the United States. Trump originally expressed interest in acquiring Greenland all the way back in 2019. So the idea has been around for a while. Even though the vast majority of Greenlanders are EU citizens, the EU diplomatic service, known as the European External Action Service, it's not exactly coming out against Trump's suggestion of an impending American land grab. Most recently, it was when Trump appointed Kenneth Hawerwe as the new ambassador to Denmark. This is when Trump once again brought up the idea of the United States buying and controlling Greenland. Now, Hawerwe is the co-founder of PayPal, but he's also the former U.S. ambassador to Sweden. And so far, he's been pretty quiet about his own thoughts of this plan. It seems the only one who has publicly come out against the idea of America taking ownership and control of Greenland has been the Prime Minister of Brussels. He was quoted on Facebook, of all places, saying, "Greenland is ours, we are not," hours after Trump posted his remarks. Denmark announced it would boost its defense spending in Greenland by 1.3 billion. Now, although the Danish was just a coincidence.
Play the Hegelian dialectic, right? At one point, you think that Denmark is fighting against Trump, but at another point, they're actually increasing the defense budget, right? So that they can do what they have to do. Because all of the global elites, for the most part, they might not agree on the methodology, but they have the same agenda for world unity, right? In the world coming together. So that is what they're working towards. So whether it is Trump or it's Obama or somebody in Europe, they're all working together for a similar agenda, yet they have their idea in terms of who is going to be the leader of that sort of one world government, right? So that is what we're seeing being played out, and that's why we can't continue to be played, and then we're taking sides with one, and then we're saying the other is evil. Because when all is said and done, if we understand very well what the ultimate agenda is, which many people don't understand, then we are going to see that they are working together. All right? And I think that's what he's saying here.
Let's get back to Bible prophecy. Bible prophecy being fulfilled. Daniel chapter, he had of 4 great beasts coming up out of the sea. The 4th beast has 10 horns, and he saw another horn, a smaller. Well, in verse 17, Daniel is given the interpretation of that vision. The 4 great beasts are 4 kings that will rise from the earth. The 4th beast is a 4th kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms. Times and half a time. Daniel 7, verse 24 and 25. Now, we know this vision is speaking of the Antichrist and the tribulation. Go to Revelation chapter 17, verse. Who have not yet received royal power, but they're about to receive authority as kings for just 1 hour. Together with that beast. 17 will overcome him because he is Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Hallelujah. Now, both the Antichrist comes on the scene is where Trump's plan. Many people see the North American Union, the United States, Mexico, and Canada, as being part of the 10 kings of Revelation. However, If you look at this map, you can see where Greenland is, and look how it's connected to the United States. Now, look, now the map I was showing you was designed after the 1972 release of a book entitled The Limits to Growth. The material in The Limits to Growth deal with world population, climate change, and the transitioning to sustainability, all of which are foundational elements of the current World Economic Forum and the Great Reset. Okay, President Trump, Greenland, the Club of Rome, Daniel 7, Revelation 17. Yes, we do live in very, and with that, it gives us the confidence and the ability.
In perspective with the Club of Rome and the world being divided up into 10 different regions, right? With 10 different leaders, which are the kings of the world. Now, the kings there refer to the prime ministers and the presidents, and that is what they're doing. They're dividing the world up into 10 different regions, and all of us have been, and I've shared that with you before, and you see the North American Union, Japan, right, East Asia, and all of these other countries, Australia, that you will be seeing the world divided up into. So we are in for an interesting, and sometimes we're seeing these things and we think that they're normal, but they're not normal. And until we understand the agenda, do we connect the dots, right? And that is what we are here to do, to connect the dots. We're going to listen to 2 more, and then we're going to end the live. So, and you know, you can listen to your comments on this on the screen, then we can end the live, so that we can have a, you know, let me see, I have to share this with you. Sorry, let me share the this with you. Get it here. I think it's uniting the world. Let me go back there. Uniting. Yeah, this is what I want to share. But I have to take off this thing here. Let me. All right. Let me share this with you now. I'm going to share with it should be on the screen, and then we are going to discuss some of the things and end the live.
Yes, that he is a well-qualified prophecy expert. And his 25th book only reinforces Dr. LaHaye's wonderful quote about him. Mark, it's great talking to you. It's just motivating and exciting, so fresh. We have talked in past segments about the 1948 becoming a nation and how that was a very strategic event to take place on a prophetic timeline for those of us that are looking for the glorious appearing of our Lord Jesus. We talked about the rapture of the church and his bride, the bride of Christ being caught up to be with him. Prophetic timeline, and you talk about that. It's a gathering to.
That's right. The Bible tells us there's going to be several great world empires we're going to rule in succession. One of the great chapters in the Bible, a couple of the great prophetic chapters, Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, and Daniel Babylonian. We know those had succession exactly as Daniel said. But that fourth and final empire that represented the Roman Empire is pictured in a stage where it's ruled over by 10 kings, 10 individuals. And we know that Rome historically has never been ruled over by 10 kings or 10 people. So since everything else in that prophecy was all literally fulfilled, well, we believe that has to be literally fulfilled as well. The basis for what a lot of theologians have called a reunion. See how that would happen today, a committee of 10 or some, I call them the G10. You have the G7 and the G8. So I call them the G10, the group of 10 who are going to come on the scene initially in the end time.
Well, we see the echoes of that in things like a European Union or things like a NATO or and is intensifying as we move forward in history.
That's right. And we see these things coming together. And I believe, again, this is just another part of that stage setting that we see taking place that tells us that the Lord's coming could be very soon.
Yeah. The table does seem to be set. As you are
surveillance, implementing some of the New World Order, objectives in Jamaica. So I just wanted to show this with you. Let me see if it will come up on my screen and we can end the live with that. Let me share this with you about Andrew Holness and how they are being awarded, and they are being incentivized. They are incentivizing our Caribbean presidents and prime ministers for doing what the people want them to do. That is not what I was trying to click on. Let me click on this here and share this last clipping with you of Prime Minister Andrew Holness and his being awarded by America for implementing aspects of the New World Order. And put it on the screen. Let me see if, it's up here. So let me turn up the volume now. As soon as it gets there, I'll turn up the volume. Okay.
Once again, Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness is traveling to San Diego, California, to receive the 2026 EasyRe Award. Recognizes the government's use of Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, to support smarter data. EasyRe is the global leader in GIS software and location intelligence, with its technology used by governments around the world for disaster response, infrastructure planning, environmental management, and evidence-based policymaking. The award will be presented during the EasyRe User Conference, taking place from July 11th to July 14th. During the Prime Minister's absence, Culture Minister Olivia Grange will serve as acting Prime Minister until Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Horace Chong returns to Jamaica. He is expected back on Saturday and will then resume acting for the remainder of Dr. Holness' overseas engagements. The award is another major international recognition for Jamaica's efforts to modernize government through technology and innovation. Do you think this recognition is a proud moment for Jamaica? Let us know in the comments. Jamaica
All right, so we see where, all of the governments, they are fully on board with what is happening in the world and for the global agenda, and that is going to be surveillance, right? And surveillance means that everything about us is going to be recorded, right, and controlled. Okay, some people don't understand there's something called due process, right? And that is what we are moving away from. We'll no longer have due process. They'll just tell us that we are criminals and we just have to say that it is. And that is what they were trying to do also when they were shooting up the boats in the region, right? They were telling us that due process is the end of it, that we do not have the rights that we assume that we generally had. All right, those things are of the past, and due process is now of the past for the most part. Some must understand the nuisances of the system. Yes, it is. And then we have convenience and familiarity of the system, and it will cause many to run back in the burning house. We have to make sure we aren't the ones to justify doing the same, lest we become what we are fighting for. Absolutely. And then we have Trevor saying, CARICOM won't be joining hands and singing Kumbaya anytime soon. They're not, right? They're not on our side for the most part. CARICOM joins hands with when it benefits their ideals. CARICOM is a tool of the United States hegemonic power. JJ saying it's about resources, energy, land, control over nations' politics. Absolutely, absolutely agree 100%. And we have here stocking, yes, and correct. The union, etc., are making them right. So this is what we had for this afternoon's discussion. And I just thought of sharing that with you. It laid on my mind as I saw the news that Europe is now following the United States in implementing the same, immigration policies that we see in the United States, the same that the European Union is doing. And we can see the connection between the third country nationals and that the European Union will also be sending immigrants to third countries. So what's the difference? And they will not be accepting asylum seekers, all of that. So where are we going to go? We have no safe haven. And that is what we need to understand now. There is no safe place on earth where you and I can go if we have problems within our own country. Gone are the days when we could go to England, or we could go to France, or we could go to the United States, or to Canada. But now what we're seeing happening globally is that there is no escape route. There's no path for security. They are telling us that they are secured and they are securing our borders, but that is not true. They are doing everything to the contrary. They're actually controlling us and scaring the life out of us. That's exactly what they're doing right now. Europe had no choice. When you say they had no choice, what do you mean by that? Europe actually participated in U.S. imperialism in the Middle East, which led to, of course, the destabilization of Libya, Iraq. Now we're seeing Iran and many of the countries in the Middle East, and then they trekked to these countries, these European countries, and that is what happened. So when we say they had no choice, they had a choice, and they should not have participated in U.S. imperialism. Then they would not have had any choice. Just like the United States, had it not implemented draconic policies in the Latin American countries like, El Salvador, Honduras, right, Nicaragua, and even Venezuela, right, then these people would not have gone to the United States en masse. The same thing for Haiti. And that's what, these immigrants are saying, that we did not really destabilize our country. The United States, for the most part, its policies, the United States foreign policies helped in the destabilization efforts of many of these countries in the Caribbean and Latin America, and of course, in the Middle East. So these are the things we have to look at and not say that, the immigrants are wrong and U.S. citizens or the U.S. authorities are right or the European authorities are right. We've got to look at things in their proper perspective. Duterte thought he was safe in what he did, but the ICC has him in custody to face due process, nuisance or not. Yeah, and it's interesting how they use these people, use some of our politicians, and then they spit them out. Right? They use them to achieve their policies in these countries, and after they've been used, then they spit them out of their mouths as if they were nobody at all. Listen to Trump UN speech last year. Narco-terrorists was the term used, and terrorist has no due process. Yes, but who are the terrorists? That's the question I've been asking since last year. Who are the terrorists? And who created these terrorists, as it were? And when we look at who created them, I think then we can say, wow, these are the same persons who are trying to seek solutions. The same terrorists are telling us that they're trying to protect us from the terrorists. Now, make that make sense, if you understand what I mean. But that is what is happening in the world in which we live. Yeah, Saddam was used too, correct. Saddam was saying, yeah, Saddam was used too. Then they took care of him using psyops, because what happened is that, you know, the leaders sometimes are used, and then when they want to implement something that the United States might be against, then there is a problem. So even Miss Kamala Persson-Bissessar now, she is in their good books, right? But if she decides to do something for Trinidad and Tobago that the United States doesn't like, then they are going to turn the cards on her. And that is why you cannot do what the United States wants you to do if it does not align with good thinking and moral and ethical standards. Because if you do that, they're pretty much good at spitting you out of their mouths at their own convenient time. We have here Pedro saying, you don't know, Mandela was once called one. Yes, I've heard of that Mandela is not as, what do you call it now, as actually, I do know, as a freedom fighter, as many people say he is, right? So a very controversial figure. People are suggesting that he was not what he claimed to be. Now, we have Trevor saying also the EU has requested that 5 Caribbean nations, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Lucia phase out their citizenship by investment programs by June 1, 2028. Yes, and I heard the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda suggesting that they will have to do it because the US is saying that they have to. And if they don't do it, then we know there's going to be a problem, including restrictions of visas, right? You now describe the reason for TCD, the TCN. Well, the fact of the matter, if they created it, as I'm saying, if they created it, there's no justification, because how can a terrorist, is almost like an arsonist, burning down your home and afterwards coming in to tell you that he's the one who's trying to, to out the fire? Okay, and that's what we're saying, that the United States in a lot of times has created these problems, and then she's turning around suggesting that she is here now to control. The Europeans also created the mess in the Middle East and some of these countries, and we saw now an influx of these people going into Europe, particularly Western European countries, and the citizens are crying and screaming that they're being raped and they are being murdered. But the same thing happened under US occupation and also European occupation in the Middle East. Women were raped, and not that I'm justifying what they're doing, but what I'm saying that these things, what goes around actually comes around, and that is why we ought not to do bad things, because when we least expect it, it can come back to haunt us, and maybe not you directly, but your children and your children's children. And that is what the United States has not yet learned, that you might be harassing and terrorizing a country now, and then tomorrow the effects are going to be actually dispensed on your society. Third country report is why run there. So third country's report is why run there. Well, the fact of the matter is that we're saying that they ran to these countries because the countries have been destabilized. And let's be very fair now. What would happen to Barbados or Jamaica or to Trinidad or any of these Caribbean countries if we were destabilized? We have to run. Because sometimes you have to run for your life. And that's what Haitians do, not because they're scared, but because human survival. You're up against a system that is more powerful than you are. And at any given moment, somebody can gun you down or rape you, rape your children, rape your wife, whomever. So we've got to be sympathetic and understanding and be able to contextualize these things. Now, Anon is saying they they tried to exploit Iran in the 50s, and Mossadegh opposed them, causing all this mess and fake news psyops on mainstream media. Absolutely, that's exactly what happened. They've been trying to get Iran for many years, right? And now it is what they're doing. They're trying now, because one of the things that happened too is the US, they had a little bit more laws, or they would try their best, even though it was not always accomplished, right, to adhere to the principles of the Constitution. But now, as we've had the US has transitioned into what we call the Patriot Act. So the United States can do whatever it wants to do now around the world. Many people are not talking about the Patriot Act that George W. Bush actually crafted and implemented, right? And so these are the laws now that Trump is actually implementing, enacting, and the media is going berserk as if these are Trumpian laws, when these laws were already made years ago after 9/11. And that is what we have to go back to. We've got to remember our history. And because we're not remembering our history, we're blaming that this is just Trump, 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 Trump. But this is bigger than Trump. Pedro Jamat is saying, you mentioned what would happen to Kamala if she, to Kamala, if she doesn't follow the U.S. is the reason the others have to take the TCD. I got you. Run somewhere else. Yeah, there's nowhere to run. You see, run somewhere else. Where are we going to run? You're going to have to find some place in the hills or the mountains, but you're certain. And remember too that if you're running, part of the problem is that they can also track you, so they know where you are. So if you're running through an airport, right, they already know that Pedro Jamat is leaving whatever country you're in. I think you're in Barbados, right? So they probably say, okay, Pedro Jamat of Barbados, he has his plan to vacate Barbados, apprehend him as soon as he gets to the airport. Or maybe while you're in the traffic on the highway to the airport in Barbados, they already apprehend you and you cannot leave. Side note, Andrew, be careful saying the rape word. Yes, thank you for telling me that. YouTube have been removing videos for it. Thank you so much for telling me. Double check some of the words right in their policies so the algorithm doesn't hide your work. You're correct. And even on the live and these words, you're correct. Thank you so much for reminding me, Trevor. Now, Pedro is saying, sounds crazy running to the colonizers. Well, and that's it's ironic. Yes, but maybe that's what they wanted them to do. Maybe that's what they wanted them to do. I think that was the agenda. I think that they wanted them to go to Europe and go to America and destabilize these countries so that they could, militarize immigration. I think that it was carefully designed that way. So yes, they're running to their colonizers, but at the same time, it is what it is. It might have been a safer place for them, or it could have been engineered that they do that to destabilize Europe. So that is what we are. Run to Africa. Anywhere we run now, the United States is there, right? Anywhere we run to the Caribbean, the United States is there. You run to Africa, and the United States is there. You run to Europe, and the United States and these globalists are there. So what we're saying now, the laws are that's why we're saying the world is being divided up into 10 different regions, and they are the same ones who control these 10 different regions. So the North American Union, we are also involved in that union, the Caribbean nations, right? You have the Africa also, the sub-Saharan African countries. So they are also under US influence and decision. So the entire world is being united. Why do you think during the pandemic also, we weren't able to get away from taking the V? Right? Because everywhere you go, whether it's China you go to, you have the same rule. You went to Iran, the same rule. You went to Russia, the same rule. So there was pretty much nowhere we could have run to. We just had to stay there and hope for the best. And that's what we did. Most of us did, right? We hoped for the best in our neck of the woods. Pedro is saying, stop scaring yourself then. I'm not scaring myself. What I'm saying here, I'm trying to be practical by saying that we have nowhere to go, right? And that when you say that they ran to Europe, and why did they run? They ran because they were destabilized. And human beings, whether you're running to a temporary safe location for survival, that is what you do, right? You're not going to stay there and be killed. You do what you have to do at the moment, and then if you have to move on, then you move to another country. But now they're making it very difficult for us to move to any country, including the United States, because all of the laws are now being staged against us. Now, Trump ain't take away your rights in the pandemic. Well, the United States did that too. Trump was responsible. That's the pandemic started under Trump, right? And Trump was the one who started off with the laws. In fact, he was the one who said that if he had won the second term in 2020, was it 2020? Yeah, 2021, that he would have actually used the military to put the V into people's arms. So Trump was actually a part of the whole pandemic. He was. Trevor is saying Elon's Starlink is being used to fully optimize surveillance worldwide, so there's no way to hide. Don't think for a second that his SpaceX program made him a trillionaire to go to space. Absolutely. And I'm seeing that everywhere now in the Caribbean, Trevor, the Starlink, that is what people are using for their internet. In fact, I think very soon Digicel and all of these other internet networks, companies are going to be out of business soon. Flow and all of these companies in the Caribbean are going to be out of business. I think so. I really, really think so, because Starlink is going to be almost like the global internet connectivity, right? And we're going to be connecting through the walls, and probably through whatever, that I think that's where we're moving to right now. So the entire world is going to be surveilled. So whether you are in Trinidad or in Barbados or you're in the Middle East, you will be surveilled. And that is what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying too, ladies and gentlemen, that when we side with one country like Iran, as some of us do, they're on board with that too. Climate change is going to unite us under that banner. They are on board with a digital economy, right? So we have to understand that it is not just these superficial things that we talk about, but at the end of the day, they are going to unite under a certain umbrella, whether it's climate change, immigration policies. And we can see the world coming together under immigration policies, because people don't like when their mothers are raped or their daughters are raped. And that is a good justification. So they are going to cry out to their government that I can't take it anymore, right? When climate change is wreaking havoc on the countries that we live in, we're going to cry out to our government, we can't take it anymore. And then they're going to say, well, if you can't take it anymore, then this is what we have to do. And then we are going to comply, just like we did during COVID. So we can see where we're going, that the world in which we live, people, even those who are saying now that they won't comply, are going to comply. Because when people are tired, just as Pedro is saying, the same guys in the Middle East ran into the arms of their colonizers. So they moved from the Middle East right to Europe, right? Because they were trying to seek some sort of, haven, safety, a safe haven, if you will. And that is what they did. And that's what we're going to do to many of us who say, I'm against the New World Order. And then we end up doing what they tell us to do out of fear. Okay. Trevor is saying that's another topic. But those satellites aren't even where they call space. Hence why they can see everything and feed streams how they do. I think too, as you said, Trevor, I think that they're working with spirits, right? It is not just human beings setting up these things. Even AI, I don't think AI is completely human, a human invention rather, right? I think that it has to do something with the demonic realm, the spiritual realm. And because I don't think humans could do what AI is doing right now. The speed at which it responds to you, I don't think that ordinary human beings could create something like that. I don't think so, right? And I think Starlink is moving in that direction too, where we are going to be They're going to surveil us even through the walls. They'll be able to look through the walls and see what we're doing behind the walls. Okay, this is the type of technology that they're coming up with right now. So, and, you know, because people like to be connected, they're going to give up their rights to be connected to these systems. Yeah. All right. Say, any other question? I think that this is the end of the live program. We can please like it and share it with as many people. Tomorrow we'll talk about great, the Afro Caribbeans and also Africans and their contribution to the building of the UK. Now, funny, when Trump America first bombed Palestine the other day, his first words to the people were, "Go take back your country." Right. And I'm sure he was probably talking to the Israelis, right? Maybe not the Palestinians. Trevor here saying I spaced in. Yeah. So yeah. So that is what we were able to discuss this afternoon. Hopefully, people will learn something from this live. It is serious, and we are not taking it serious here in the Caribbean region as we ought to. Trevor is saying, yes, Andrew, the occult is interwoven with the technology. Yes, it has to. When you look at AI, ChatGPT, these things are not normal, right? I use it and I can see that it is not normal. It's not something that humans alone made. It is a connection with the spirit realm that you and I don't want to get into. Now, Anon is saying, if you look at some countries, you may understand why they only have intranet instead of internet. I see what you're saying. And remember to Trevor and all of you on the line, on in the chat, that Hitler used a lot of the occult in his administration and his rule over Nazi Germany, right? So the same thing is going to happen right now, and it's happening in our world, where they're going to use a lot of the occult. Even the whole matter of surveillance is demonic and is also merged with the occult. And that is why they're trying to show us lots of movies, right? And people are beginning to think that the occult, voodoo, and all of these things are acceptable. We're beginning now to say these things. We're normalizing these things and say that, it's African religions and whatever, because they're trying to let us, white magic, black magic, right? All of these things, even some of the movies we watch, right, are closely aligned and tied with the world of the occult. But people don't want to understand these things. They think that they're just dealing with imagination and human thinking and human creativity and human genius. This is what we tell ourselves. But when we wake up, we're going to realize that we are in a demonic world in which these, occult beings and spirits control our politicians and human beings. Remember now, let me just end with this quotation. And I think it was in Revelation 16. I want to read an aspect of that because many of us think that what I'm talking is just nonsense and, he's just using his figment of the imagination. But let us look at Revelation 16 and look at how the miracles that our leaders will be playing right before our eyes. And they're not going to do it, just through some human invention, right? Well, human invention, but not through normal, ordinary things, right? And Revelation 16:1 says, "And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying, the seven angels, go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. And the second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as the blood of a dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became blood. And I beheld the angel of the waters saying, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which art and wast, and shall be, because thou hast just judged thus. For they have shed the blood of saints and prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy. And I heard another out of the altar say, even so, Lord Almighty, true and righteous are the names. But maybe this is not what I wanted to read, though. Right. Now, yet the verse 14 is saying, for they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth. And by the kings, we mean the what? The prime ministers and presidents, right? So we see the spirit realm going to advise them and to give them instruction, for they are spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole earth. The whole world will be involved in this demonic display to gather them to the battle of the great day of the Lord God Almighty. So we can see already that we're sensing this demonic realm and its participation in government activities, the AI, some of our surveillance equipment, that they can see us even through a wall, right? That is the technology that they're developing, that they will see us through walls and they can see what we're doing. And this is nothing that is human. You cannot see what somebody's doing behind their walls. But definitely members of the spiritual realm, the occult, they can see you. And if you talk to people who are in like the Freemasonry and all that stuff, they do these things sometimes, depending on what level you are in. Right? You are sometimes aligned with the demonic realm, with the realm of the spiritual realm, and people can walk through walls. Well, the spirits allow them, not that they can do it physically, but the spirits allow them to walk through walls, and people are saying, how did you even get here? But that is what the spirit realm was enabled them to do. Well, Pedro is saying, you haven't seen the last Olympic ceremony in Paris. And yeah, that was an interesting one too. The occult was very much a part of that. And Trevor is saying the opening ceremony in Paris couldn't be any more blatant. Absolutely. And a lot of sleep from COVID. Yes, people are still sleeping. People are not really awake to see what is happening. Because even COVID too, as you said, Pedro Jamart, and the fact that they were able to use that, what they call it again? It's like, I don't want to call it the name. Is it snake oil? Whatever. And the one in London with the brass bull. Yes. Everything about the sports is linked with the occult, by the way. Sports and the occult. And maybe one of these days we should talk about that, right? How the occult is tied up with sports. That's why you have fans and people worship their fans, right? Or, well, not worship their fans, they worship their stars, right? The ones who are playing, the footballers, the basketball players. I mean, have you ever seen sometimes when, a team does not win, and might have lost a game, and the fights that break out in the stadium, right? Out of nowhere, and some of them are vicious because they lost. Do you think that's normal? Because you lose a game? Now, and on that, and the exposure to become westernized, as many have. Now, we have here in Trevor saying Pedro clear as day with the symbolism, but then again, many people don't even know the origins of the Olympics and think it's all about sports, right? It's not sports, it's worship. Sports is worship. And one of these days we have to talk about that. And I'm sure Trevor will help me to do that. And I'm just saying, yes, Trevor, internet is akin to a LAN. Localized internet is a WAN, wide area network, exposed to the world. Yes, that's true. And Pedro is saying transhumanism is what you're talking about. Yes, all of these things, the transhumanism is wanting us to unite with the world of the occult. That is what they're essentially doing. And that we're no longer humans, but we're like demigods. And because these spirits can do things that we and I cannot do, then we will feel powerful. And that is why people join the occult, like Freemasonry, because they get exposed to these demonic realm. And even some of your musicians, a lot of your top musicians are also connected with that world. And they sing music that puts you into that frame, into that world. And some people, as they hear the music, they know something in the spirit is dark, and like a dark being surround you. And that's why you see some of your musicians killing themselves. The Whitney Houstons, and, well, not that she killed herself, but she was also connected. Michael Jackson and some of these top musicians have to give their adoration to these spirit realm if they want to be successful in their careers. And great sports, stars also have to do that. And that's why many of them do the things that they do sometimes, some crazy stuff that normally, had they been in their right mind, they would not have done. Okay? So this is what we get for being famous in this world. Now, I'm saying we forget who is the master of music. Correct? We forget. And lest we forget. And the master of music has all the instruments in his being. Can you imagine? All the instruments. So when he opens his mouth to sing, it is music that you're hearing. The instruments in his voice. Okay? So Lucifer was the master of music. Right? He was the master of music, and he's the one who controls that world. Okay? And when you hear some of these singers, you can actually hear like the demons in them. Some of them when they sing, and you feel that sensation that your spirit, while it might be entertaining, but there's an impression that they leave on your soul, on your spirit. Right? You have the Lucis Trust. In fact, the Lucis Trust was formerly called the Lucifer Trust, but because she did not want it, it sort of caught the attention of people, and they're saying Lucifer Trust. How can you say that's something Lucifer Trust, right? So she called it the Lucis Trust, so that people would not be so much opposed to the idea. That was Madame Blavatsky, right? So a lot of what we're seeing now, things that we are seeing are things that are not normal. And we know that they are miracles that are being wrought in the demonic realm. Even our presidents and prime ministers are greatly involved in these things. And I'm telling you, the climate change is one of those where you have to be deeply involved in the occult realm. They're actually worshiping the stars. They're worshiping the trees. Right? They're worshiping Earth. Now, it doesn't mean that we should not take care of Earth, Mother Earth. We need to take care of the Earth that we live on, the planet we live on. So we're not against that. But it's when you begin to worship the planet and you begin as if you are more powerful than the planet. Now, we can't stop hurricanes from coming. We can't stop storms. We can stop, of course, maybe we can mitigate some of them, but we can't stop what is going to happen to us. But they're behaving as if we can. If these people can, they can predict and they can stop an earthquake from coming, and they can't. Now, high-paid athletes like footballers just to chase a ball, but a janitor can barely be paid and disrespected, or a teacher neglected. All the high-paid distractions, the Colosseum lives. And that is true. Rome alive and well. Look at today, football, and everybody is so much taken up with this soccer, right? This World Cup. At the end of the day, while that is happening, governments are planning to destroy and to shatter our lives. Now, what color are they? Trevor, he's asking what color. Yeah, so this is a very interesting live, ladies and gentlemen. Very interesting, and we've got to get our acts together. We've got to get our knowledge together of what is happening with this surveillance world, and which is leading us into the mark of the beast, right? And remember now that this is not going to be like the pandemic. You are going to individually have to, well, during the pandemic, we had to do that too, but the world is going to be so controlled that you are not going to be able to hide from them. You are not going to be able to hide from the authorities because everything will be so connected. And we're so tied now to our technologies that we would not want to let go of them. So many of us are going to fall for that sort of ideology and for the trap. Now, Trevor is saying, speaking of transhumanism, a big breakthrough was made in Neuralink. Yes, I know the Neuralink, and we have to look at that too one of these days, earlier this week, where they don't have to cut open your brain. Now they cut a layer in your skull and allow the robots to thread wires. Can you imagine that they're going to, what they're trying to do, guys, is to read our thoughts, right? They're trying as much as they can to read our thoughts. And that is this whole Neuralink thing. That is what it has to do with. Because talk about 1984, and when they talk about your thoughts, the mind control, right? That is what they are moving us into. So they can pretend, they will never be able to read our thoughts, but they're going to pretend as if they can, and then they will criminalize you for saying or thinking something that you probably didn't even enter your mind. You didn't even try to have that enter your mind or your thoughts. Correct, Trevor. In my hobby, I'm only saying we call certain people appliance operators. They can only use but not repair or troubleshoot. Interesting. Very interesting sort of comment. And JJ saying, welcome to the live, JJ. That phone is the mark of the beast, tracks everything. Well, I think that it is certainly the tool to the mark of the beast. Just like what we had during the pandemic, the vaccine was not, people thought, was the mark of the beast, or some people were saying all of the things, but it was not. But certainly the apparatuses, the phones, and whatever they use to track us, those are the things that they're placing for the mark of the beast. Remember now, the mark of the beast is going to be the number of a man, which means the number of a system, right? So people need to know what is the number of this man to be able to understand. And the Bible told us it was 666. Now, is a phone a 666? No. And that is why we have to study the system. What is the system that represents the mark of the beast? And then, because it's a system, it's not just one man, as some people are suggesting. Pedro is saying, control your thoughts, not read it. Well, they're going to pretend to read it too. So let us say that you are not somebody who speaks a lot, or you want not to say everything that you are thinking, right? So they're going to pretend, Pedro, as if they know what you're thinking, right? And that's what they're trying to do. Okay? They are going to think that they know what you are thinking just by looking at you and using their digital, apparatuses, tools to check what your thoughts. So thought crimes, that's what I was trying to look for when I talk about 1984. The thought crimes, things that you have in your mind. Okay? They're going to say that that is what he's thinking, and we have to actually punish him or her. Digital IDs is coming fast. Yes. And we can see that Trinidad and not Trinidad, Barbados and Guyana are fast tracking, Jamaica too, that sort of pace. Now, Trevor saying, Anon, just like what many manufacturers are doing with cars now, but most devices on a whole, another monopoly and more control, just like ending removable batteries so you can't be off grid. Yes. Yeah. And I wonder too, many of you, and I want to ask you this, notice everybody is now moving towards renewable energy. They're moving towards solar energy. What role does that play eventually in this sort of surveillance too? Because, and I know that why people want to be solar, because they want to get off the grid. They want not to have these high bills and stuff like that. But the fact is, while it might be convenient to begin with, but what is the agenda for all of the renewable energy and the solar energy that people are now trying to enlist and to get? Now, Pedro DeMont is saying your phone shows what you are thinking. Yes, your phone shows to a certain extent your patterns of, I don't know if it shows what you're thinking, but they can see a pattern in what you like, your interests, and what you probably don't like. So if you're constantly searching a website, then they know that for some reason you might be interested in that. But they don't know the complexity of your thinking. but they're trying. And I think that they're trying as much as possible to study how humans think. JJ saying the Caribbean is perfect for solar power. It is perfect. And I really would like to have some of that too. But I'm wondering when you see people moving in that direction, they have a plan, and because they're going to control everything. And we know that Starlink is, and space and everything. They even want to, what's his name? The guy from Microsoft, guy, what's his name again? Bill Gates. He wants to shoot the sun. He wants to dim the light of the sun, right? So they have some rather bizarre agenda, interesting things that they want to do. Trevor saying one of the biggest moves is already on the way. If Google gets their replace search engines with full AI, good luck finding truth. By the way, Trevor, that is already almost in place. It's almost semi in place, right? It's partially in place. That's the word I was looking for. Because if you Google search now, the first thing you see that comes up on your screen is an AI version of interpreting what they think you should. So let us say, for example, that I'm researching about the 10 regions that the world is divided up into. The AI is going to come and say there's no evidence that the world is divided up into 10 different regions. And then if you are going to allow that AI to control your thinking, you won't do further research. And that's the whole thing. Just like the algorithm here that controls our lives, that controls, who gets what videos, the fact is that if you don't search for yourself, then you won't know where to find, information that is pertinent to the discussion. And it's something that we need to understand. And on the saying, correct, Trevor. Let me get it back up here. Correct, Trevor. Analog devices defeated most of these schemes. Right. I don't even like to use the Google anymore because Google is actually controlling everything that you are searching for. In fact, many things that I could find on Google once, I can no longer find it. And notice too that there are some documents which are very important and Google deletes them. And when you click on it, it says no longer exists. Information no longer exists. So that's what's going to happen eventually. Some of our videos online are going to be deleted after a certain time because it contains too much information that the powers that be don't want the world to know. Welcome to the live, Marie Antoinette. Solar devices may shut down if Bill Gates successfully blocks the sun. I am doubtful that he can succeed in this endeavor. Right. I don't think he will be able, because you know what? If he does that, we are going to die. Because, God is good and he knows what the temperature should be, right? And if he blocks even just an inch of it or whatever, it can kill plant and human life, right? Because they're not gods, right? And just one little thing that they, that interfere with can cause serious destruction, right? Serious destruction to human and plant life. So I agree with you. Marie Antoinette. I don't think he's going to accomplish that. JJ saying China makes most of the solar panels really cheap to get. Yeah, I know, and I'm not against it. By the way, I'm not against people who are using solar panels because I think it's needed, and especially in the Caribbean. I've always supported it. But I'm saying that how do you think they will use the same thing, the same tool? Because these are tools, right? These are tools, and nothing is wrong with a phone or nothing is wrong with a computer. They're just tools, right? But these are tools that can be used against us, that can be weaponized against us to control us. And I would like to know how can the solar panels be used against us? But I'm not anti any of these tools. Pedro Jamati is saying China already have that technology to block the sun as the US and EU, but they're not. They might pretend as if they do, but they don't. They're not going to be able to do that, right? They're not going to be able to do that. That's something that God is not going to allow them to do because of the seriousness of the sun and, or survival. Just like how they want to get rid of carbon dioxide, that too they will not be able to do. And I'm not suggesting that they will not do enough to probably kill a lot of us, but they're not going to get it down to net zero, because if it comes down to net zero, it means therefore that plant life, okay, will die. And if plant life goes, then we don't have oxygen and we're going to die. So the fact of the matter is that there are things that they're bragging about, and we're not saying that they don't have technologies and whatever, but they're just some things that they won't be able to do. Correct. They have Gemini. You have Gemini. And then we have Pedro saying, why China don't use them? Right, because one of the things that we must understand, for those of us who are Bible readers, that God restrains human beings. And there are things that they have that could get rid of us, like the nuclear weapons, right? And they are restrained. Okay, so not everything that they say they are going to do, even though sometimes they might have the capacity to do these things, will God permit them to do. We don't know how much we must thank God and his angels for protecting us from some of these evil agendas that they are planning for us. Trevor is saying, what's the odds they had with the first Neuralink demo guy, a black guy? I wonder why. Out in the streets 3 weeks ago, and he claimed to browse, see, and select with his brain and eye patterns. I didn't follow that one, so I don't know what happened there. Trevor said, and he was connected with devices. Interesting. And JJ saying, protocols of the learned elders of Zion, YouTube keeping deleting that audiobook. Yes. Nothing that reveals certain things YouTube wants for us to know, right? YouTube wants the algorithm should control everything that we watch and we see. It's amazing how I put up videos every day, and people will say to me when I get a video that goes viral, they'll say, "Oh, you're still here?" I said, "Yes, I'm here. I never went anywhere." Because they're only responding to what the algorithm shows them, so they don't even know that I'm still online. Can you imagine? I'm here every day, and there are individuals who used to follow me who don't even know that I'm still available and I'm online, because algorithm shapes and tells them what to think. Then we have Anon is saying, PC owners have somewhat convinced Microsoft to allow users to delete most of the bloatware. What is that now? Some of you please explain what is bloatware and the Copilot, etc. The EU region has that feature because of the monopoly case against Microsoft. What is bloatware? Could you explain that for us, Anon? And some of you, if you want to come on the live, if you want to come and talk, we could, and you don't want to write it, you could come and explain it to me. I would be happy to do so. Let me share the link. Let me share the link of the live with you if you want to join the conversation and to speak, because sometimes you won't be able to write and explain yourself with any great level of, So let me share the link with you. This is the link, ladies. If you want to join on the platform, you don't have to show your face. You can just join us. Carbon dioxide, that's Darth Vader saying, is essential to life on Earth. Yes, and it's essential to the plant life. That is what they breathe in. When I was going to school, I never knew that plants were living things, right? You just thought that plant was just a plant. But plant is a living thing, and they do breathe, and that's what they breathe in. They breathe in carbon dioxide, and then they transform that carbon dioxide, convert it rather, into oxygen, right, that we breathe in. Isn't that amazing? And that's why most people like to have, plants around in their gardens, around their house, trees, because the more of these things you have around you is the more the air is purer and the better quality of the oxygen. And that's why city life is not good for us, because we have fewer trees, fewer plant life, because we're surrounded by concrete jungle, right? And it's affecting our health. Many people have asthma, they have, chronic illnesses, lung problems, because of what we're breathing in each other's, Can you imagine living in an apartment? All these high-rise apartments, people are breathing in and breathing out their carbon dioxide, and we are breathing these things in. Now, Pedro Jamont is saying climate change is a control model, just like COVID. Yeah, COVID is a part of climate change. And remember, during COVID, they were telling us that, the world was resting, and they think that was a good thing to lock down, because the environment, benefited from the break from us, because we are nuisance. They see climate change is telling us human beings that we are a nuisance to the climate. because we're breathing out carbon dioxide and we are driving our cars. And I'm sure, and I do agree that sometimes some of the cars do emit toxins into the environment, but we have to understand that it's not that they want to clean the environment, right? They want to control us. Now we have JJ Solar, Trevor is saying, is too accessible to the public. They can rule it so they won't allow it to become a thing because too many people can harness it. Many data centers, even Google, uses advanced solar tech. Wow, that's deep. That's deep. Now we have Darth Vader saying by definition, climate changes. Correct. And I agree with you. It changed in the past. It is changing as we speak. It will change in the future. The climate change hype is a psyop, just like COVID. Absolutely. Because we are not against climate change. Thank you so much, Darth Vader, for saying that. We're not against that the climate does change. So we don't want to sound as if we are, what we call it now, extremists, right? Or we're fanatics, because we're not fanatics. We know the climate changes. That's what, but notice that they're saying every day the climate is getting warmer and warmer. And the more they say that, every day we're seeing cooler temperatures sometimes, even during the summer here. Yes, we've had some very hot days, but then, after next week, you see a lot of rain and then the temperature cools down again and then it gets warmer after 2 days and so forth and so on. So we understand that there is climate change, will be climate change. And in the past, there was climate change. All right, but it's not that. It's the way they're telling us we're going to die, and if we don't save the planet, and if we don't get to net zero, all of that nonsense, that is rubbish. I'm only saying bloatware is the unnecessary software included in the operating system. Now you're talking Russian to me because I use a computer, but I am an ignoramus when it comes on to computers. So I'm still not even understanding what you're saying. You're talking a different language to me, operating system. Those of you who know, I want you to tell me, I have a computer, Dell laptop 2, that is not turning on. And I want to know, what do I do with it? Because, I see so many different, recommendations of how I can get it back. It's like one of those old Dell laptops. I think it's Latitude 3340. Anybody who knows about computer, and it seems like you do know a lot about it, please let me know how I can get the power back on. It's not powering on. Anon is saying there are ways to alter the OS before installing it on your computer. Okay, and it's the operating system, right? And I know that word, but I'm still very ignorant. Pedro Jamart is saying Yuval Noah Harari, man will be a hackable creature. And that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing with the computer, with Neuralink, all of these things. They are trying to hack us. In fact, very soon, I think they will develop technology that we can also connect to the internet from our bodies, right? Can you imagine cancer? Talk about cancer and whatever waves that are going to be in our bodies, the chemical. It's just unthinkable where we're going. Can you imagine connecting with the internet, to the internet, with your body, with your brain? Wow. Trevor is saying bloatware is the software that comes with devices built by them to farm data from you while selling you particular ideas, services, etc. Some are unseen in the background, always running. Wow, didn't even know this. You guys are educating me about this computer thing. I am like I'm an ignoramus when it comes on to laptops and computers. I use them, but I need to study more about them, I must say. Darth Vader is saying Linux, Linux, I know about Linux, I've never used it, is the up system that allows to get rid of bloatware on top of knowing what does what on your computer. But Linux, I understand, cannot be used with some software, and it's sort of limited. And that's why many people don't sort of use it. Am I true? Is it that true? Weather is a better term, yes, than climate change. Correct. I like that. I'm only saying the various flavors of Linux is okay, but the learning curve is a challenge for many. Yes, it's a Dell laptop, and it is called Latitude 3340. Latitude 3340. And one day I had it on, and I went out, and then I came back and it could not be turned on, could not be powered on. So I don't know what's happening, and I really like that computer. I prefer it than what I'm using right now. Does it have power? First to check, it doesn't have any power. Well, it has power. The charger is charging. The LED light is there. The blue light is on, but it's just not turning on. Even though I put on the power button. Now, Marisa, you should let someone open the laptop to confirm that the battery is the problem. I actually removed the battery, and I tried also to hold the power button for 30 seconds. That's what people are saying, and then it will sort of reboot it or recharge it, reset it, whatever. And I did that. It hasn't worked. But somebody was saying I should open it up and then take out the RAM and then dust it off. Sometimes you might have dust on the RAM, and that is what could be impeding it from being powered on. Trevor is saying every year they repeat to you the weather is changing. Today is the hottest day, right? That's like in Europe now, everybody's dying in Europe, right? Tomorrow is the heaviest rainfall, the coldest night, while they use weather control devices and cut down trees, etc. Correct. And the wars continue unabated. Why don't they stop the wars? The same guys who are telling us that climate and we should take care of the environment are the same ones who are pushing for wars, and they're actually, using guns and other things to kill people. So who are you talking to? Now, Anon is saying correct, but Linux is improving and it's open source too. I need to get a software, the Linux software on my computers. You're correct. We should have options because we don't know when these things are going to just conk out on us. Then we have Trevor. Anon, the cell might be dead. He might have to remove the battery and then plug it in. Yeah, that's what I did. I actually removed the battery and then I plugged it in, but it's still not working. And I did the holding down of the power button for the 30 seconds, as many people are suggesting, recommending, still not working. But I think I'm gonna have to open up the computer and take out the RAM, right? And see if I can dust it, maybe something there. I just don't know. And I'm just saying, okay, next is to open and check your battery and reset the RAM. Right, I think that the RAM perhaps need to be reset. I think that is what I'm missing, and I saw somebody recommending that today, and I need to do that. Yeah, so this was a very interesting live, guys, in terms of where we're moving into a world that is going to be controlled by our governments. We see that this is not just a human, good night, Maria, this is not just a human agenda, but humanity will be merged with technology. Technology will be merged with, what you call now the spirit realm, right? And there are some of you who are very skeptical that there are things of the spirit realm. You think that that does not exist. It's a figment of your imagination. You have to do more research on that. They're cult. And all you have to say is they're cult. Things that we can't see, right? And we have some dark forces that we have to combat with. And the same people who are skeptical of the spirit realm are the same people who will say, oh, there's an energy in the room. You can't see the energy, but when somebody comes into the room, you're seeing the person, but that person comes with a spirit that is not a spirit that is kind, right? Or it's uplifting. And it could be vice versa too. The person might come with a spirit that is calm, peaceful, serene, and makes you feel good, or another person comes with a negative vibes and make you feel very upset and you feel like running away. So we know that the occult world is real, and there are spirits that we are not seeing but exist. Now, I don't think the RAM comes out by opening the two chips on the end, okay, on both ends of the computer, okay. It comes out at 45-degree angle. I will check that, and I will have to probably ask somebody to do that for me because I'm very stupid and I don't want to destroy the computer if I try to open it by myself. Yeah, so you guys are brilliant, and I'm happy. Thank you for telling me that, because I need this computer, because there are files I have on it and I need to get them saved. Any other point that we want to talk about in this discussion? I think this was a very good live. didn't gather as many people as I wanted, but it's not the people, because these things are also used at their catalogs. And very soon, when the algorithm begins to behave itself, it will probably send it out to people. People will see that. Now, Trevor is saying vibes are real, but people have been taught not to trust their other senses, right? Their sixth sense, right? And there are people who think that there is no spirit realm. There's just physical, what we see. And how can you say that? There's so many things that happen in our lives that are strange, right? Bizarre things happen. Sometimes you're even in your house by yourself, right? And you hear sound. Sometimes something might move and you wonder, nobody's there, you know. And there are lots of strange things that happen in the world that are inexplicable, and people don't believe. People think that, you know, it's just we are the ones who live on this planet Earth. And yes, one of the RAM sticks might be fully in. And on to say the files can be saved if the hard drive is still good. Just remove the drive and install it on another computer. Oh, so you can transfer your files from a computer that cannot be turned on? I never knew that. So you just remove the drive and install it on another computer and copy the files. Wow, interesting. Thank you so much. Great talk, Teresa, as usual, guys. Yes, it's great talk. And we hope that you will like the video. Tomorrow, guys, please come on time, because if you don't come on time, then the algorithm is not going to push. And we begin tomorrow at 6. And we're talking about the contributions of Afro-Caribbeans in the UK, because there is a video now. There are videos going around as if, you know, Caribbean people never contributed to UK culture, right? They're now saying the Africans are the ones who are brighter, smarter, right? And they are the most intelligent people there in the UK. And we need to talk. We need to have that conversation, because we did make a lot of contributions to UK culture and development. Another working computer, right? But I didn't know that you could transfer the files from a dead computer to a working computer. Yes, you can remove the drive and buy an enclosure for it. Okay, I will do that. Thank you so much for joining this live, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll see you tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. when we talk about the contributions of Black Caribbean. Try to be on time so the algorithm will push the video out. If you're not on time, it just kills the video. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great night. Enjoy. See you tomorrow.